2011, Hackleburg.
This is phenomenal. It's gone. The neighborhood is gone.
Tuscaloosa.
Large tornado on the ground. Please take cover.
Oh my God, that's it. That's it. Oh my God.
Joplin.
It's a massive tornado, massive destruction.
If you were in Joplin, please take cover.
More than 1,700 tornadoes turn an ordinary year into the deadliest in a century. And it didn't explode all at once. It began quietly in the very first month. The year 2011 didn't begin with a quiet winter. After a major outbreak in December that spilled into January, 36 tornadoes swept across the United States in just the first week. By February 25th, the pattern intensified, and again on February 27th to 28th, two back-to-back outbreaks struck, producing 63 tornadoes in 2 months. A clear signal that the atmosphere was waking up far earlier than usual.
Winter tornadoes are rare, but unusually warm weather here collided with a cold front, propelling this storm system through northwest Arkansas and into Missouri.
It seemed that the atmosphere was beginning to transition into a more active phase, typical of the spring season. But nothing happened in March. Although about 75 tornadoes were confirmed, which is slightly above the long-term average for March. But these tornadoes were weak, creating a false sense of calm. By early April 2011, the atmosphere was already restless. From April 9th to 11th, the first major outbreak of the month tore across the Midwest and into the Southeast. Nearly 50 tornadoes touched down in just 2 days, ripping through farms, towns, and highways. In Iowa, a violent EF4 touched down west of Pocahontas on 9th of April around 9:54 p.m. With winds traveling over 170 miles an hour, it carved a path through open country, powerful enough to flatten homes and toss heavy equipment like toys.
The entire home was taken down, but if you look down in the basement, there's a pickup truck that had blown down into the basement. Remarkably, there were people down in the basement at the time. And Liz, this isn't the only damage that we found.
Wisconsin was hit hard too, seeing one of its largest April tornado days ever. But despite the strength of the storms, no lives were lost. A rare moment of luck in a year that had very little of it. However, that calm didn't last. In just 3 days, a powerful storm system led to explosive consequences. From April 14th to 16th, almost 179 tornadoes spun up across 16 states, from the high plains through the Midwest and deep into the Southeast. Towns in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama were battered as supercells marched east, one after the other, leaving roofs torn away, neighborhoods shredded, and entire communities changed forever. This outbreak became known as the Forgotten Outbreak, not because it was small, but because what came next would overshadow it. Then came April 16th, the day the Carolinas would never forget.
Have tornado warnings in effect for Caswell County, also Alamance counties that expire at 2:45 this afternoon, and an impressive look on the radar of those storms moving through Caswell and Alamance counties.
As the storms pushed east, they roared into North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia, spawning about 30 tornadoes in a single day, the largest outbreak in the state's history. These communities rarely saw violent twisters, so when they struck, nobody was truly prepared for the sudden destruction that consumed these areas. One of the most destructive tornadoes of the outbreak touched down at 2:53 p.m. on April 16th near Sanford, North Carolina. It came from a violent supercell racing across Lee County. This long-track EF3 twister, with winds up to about 160 miles per hour, blasted southeast through neighborhoods and businesses, flattening a Lowe's home improvement store and shredding dozens of homes in its first few miles on the ground. It smashed its way into Holly Springs, snapping trees and downing power lines, then bore into the greater Raleigh area. With the winds raging at 160 miles per hour, the twister tore off roots, snapped trees, and filled the streets with debris.
It's just like a train, just continuously coming. I thought it was never going to end. And it was the most powerful wind I've ever felt in my life.
Parts of South Saunders Street near I-40 took a full beating, with many roads becoming impassable. It then continued towards the Stony Brook North community, where almost half of the 200 mobile home units were devastated. When the tornado tore through the trailer park, one home was left crushed beneath a massive fallen tree. Christina Alvarez, her son, daughter, and 2 nephews tried to take shelter from the storm in the closet of her trailer. When the storm subsided, the bloodied mother ran outside, desperately screaming for help. A huge tree fell directly on her home. A neighbor rushed through the branches to save them, but under the weight of the trunk, he could only feel the children's lifeless arms. The 3 boys died at the scene. Later, Christina was hit by another blow. Her 6-month-old daughter died in the hospital from her injuries. She was the 4th child to be killed in the storm.
There are around 200 mobile homes in that mobile home park. Around half of those will not be livable.
The tornado claimed 6 lives in total and left over 300 injured. The Sanford to Raleigh tornado was among the costliest single tornadoes of the mid-April outbreak, with damage in the Raleigh area alone estimated at over $115 million, and dozens of homes and businesses damaged or destroyed. Just minutes later, at about 3:40 p.m., another violent tornado spun out of the same severe weather system near Wayside, southwest of Fayetteville. This twister quickly strengthened into an EF3, with estimated winds around 140 miles per hour as it entered Cumberland County and the northwestern parts of Fayetteville. The destruction became unimaginable when the winds reached the area between Yadkin Road and the entrance to Fort Bragg. All the neighborhoods along Yadkin Road were hit with devastating force, and entire blocks were reduced to rubble as the mile-wide tornado ripped apart one home after the other.
You can see these cinder block buildings, almost like a dorm-like building, but now just looks like a child's building blocks that have been thrown around after they were through playing with them.
After the tornado passed, 150 houses in Fayetteville were completely destroyed, but the winds kept raging on with the same intensity. The storm then tracked along the I-95 corridor through Dunn, just south of Benson. By this time, multiple vortex tornadoes were wreaking havoc on the ground. After damaging countless homes and businesses, the tornado finally lifted near Smithville at 4:45 p.m. Like the Sanford storm, this was a long-track tornado that stayed on the ground for 58.5 miles, tearing through 5 different counties. But the death toll here was lower, only 2, thanks to the early warnings. And while the nightmare was over for one community, it was just beginning for the next one. The same day, an EF3 touched down around 6:55 p.m., a mile south of Askew-ville, causing extensive damage to farms and homes across its 19-mile path.
Her whole house flew away over in the woods, and she was in it. And that's what happened. They took her out. They took the whole house in the woods and laying her over in the woods. And she probably didn't know what hit her.
This tornado stood out because, despite not being rated EF4, it caused enormous human and economic damage, killing 11 people in a matter of minutes. By nightfall, 24 people in North Carolina were dead, and families were left searching through debris where their homes once stood, while emergency crews worked through the darkness, unsure how many more were trapped. And yet, even after all that, 2011 was still only warming up. What lay ahead would be bigger, deadlier, and impossible to forget. By the final week of April, the atmosphere was primed for a disaster of historic proportions. On April 25th, meteorologists recorded alarming signs. Warm southern air and powerful high-altitude winds created conditions for an explosive event. That night, that threat became a reality when the first tornado touched down in Arkansas. It was 6:48 p.m. when a tornado touched down in Pulaski County, about 19 miles west-northwest of downtown Little Rock, near the rural community of Ferndale. The circulation strengthened quickly, reaching high-end EF2 intensity, with winds estimated between 120 and 130 miles per hour. As it moved northeast, crossing Lake Maumelle, the twister began to grow fast, eventually expanding into a massive wedge more than a mile wide. and by the time it reached Valonia, it had transformed into a massive rain-wrapped wall of wind. Richard Bass had just finished dinner with his 3 children when he sensed a change in the air pressure. He quickly gathered his family and rushed to the nearest closet that was designed as a tornado shelter. In just a few seconds, the storm slammed into his home, ripping its roof and walls off with unimaginable pressure.
I felt the barometric pressure drop. I felt the rumbling, and I grabbed my 3 kids and my 3 dogs and went to the closet right back there.
Richard's family survived, but not everyone was as lucky. The storm tore into Black Oak Ranch estates and nearby neighborhoods, uprooting homes from the foundations and shredding mobile homes. It was one of the most destructive tornadoes Arkansas had seen in decades. 4 people died in Valonia, and almost 60 were injured.
The wind just started howling, then all heck broke loose, and something come crashing through the front door, and it just, we just thought the house was going to explode any second.
But this was only the beginning of the outbreak, as the human cost was about to exceed all expectations. April 26th started with a high risk of severe weather. A warning was issued for portions of Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. 31 EF0 and 19 EF1 tornadoes struck different parts of the country that day. 4 EF2 level twisters also hit Greenbrier, Marshall, Tar Heel, and Deadwood, Texas. One of them was a long-track wedge tornado that caused damage in rural parts of Texas and Louisiana. The strongest one recorded on the 26th was the EF3 that ravaged the Campbell Army Airfield at Fort Campbell. The weather situation was worsening by the hour. Finally, at 1:10 a.m., the Storm Prediction Center issued a high-risk outlook for severe weather. It was the strongest warning in their system, reserved for only the most outrageous days. The morning began with James Spann urging viewers on live television not to ignore the tornado threats, which promised to be extremely powerful.
Landmarks that you'll understand, and if you are close to any of those we call out, and you're in that polygon, you'll need to go to a more substantial shelter. And everybody that lives in a mobile home in the state should have a plan on what to do, whether it's 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, weekday or weekend.
At about 2 p.m., his team spotted a rotating wall of clouds near Jasper, Alabama, a clear sign of a tornado. The data was immediately transmitted to meteorologists, and within minutes, an official warning was issued for the city of Cullman.
This is a storm coming right for downtown Cullman. So again, look at there. Look,
there's your funnel.
Okay,
not
right
sure if
here.
it's down.
Right. And remember, just because you don't see the condensation, this thing could be down.
And across northern Alabama, the nightmare of April 27th was about to begin. It was 2:40 p.m. when a tornado touched down just north of Lewis Smith Lake, quickly intensifying into a violent EF4, with winds estimated at up to 190 miles per hour. From the start, this wasn't a short-lived funnel. It was a powerful long-track tornado, carving a relentless path to the northeast. As it moved into Cullman County, the tornado grew into a massive multiple vortex wedge, tearing through neighborhoods and heading straight for the heart of the city.
I was going right towards Mom's. Oh, shit. Oh, no.
The winds became brutal as they reached downtown Cullman, crushing back structures and storefronts, including churches and businesses. Kitty Crawford, the owner of the Busy Bee Cafe, sent her staff to safety, but stayed behind herself to close the cafe. When she spotted the tornado heading directly towards her, she dropped to the floor and crawled as far as she could under the counter. In an instant, the winds tore the building apart, burying Kitty under the rubble. When rescuers pulled her from the debris, she had suffered severe pelvic and back injuries, but despite everything, she miraculously survived. The tornado didn't stop in Cullman, but continued northeast for nearly 47 miles, plowing into parts of Morgan and Marshall counties and passing near the city of Aaron. It finally lifted, leaving behind a continuous trail of devastation across north-central Alabama. 6 people died in the rural areas, and more than 100 were injured. The damage in downtown Cullman alone was estimated at $13.5 million, destroying roughly 40 businesses and and 294 residences. But the worst was yet to come. Another tornado